going to do a couple of example problems today. On number 6, we are still dealing with this idea of direct, inverse, and joint variation. Now, as you read the problem, it tells you exactly which one you're working with. What does number 6 say we are working with? Direct. It says y varies directly. Now, this one's a little bit different. This one said y varies directly as x, and this one says y varies directly as the cube of x. So let's just think about our standard equation for direct variation. Our standard equation is y equals k times x to the power of n. But this time, we know what our n value is. Our n value in this particular case is going to be a 3. So rewrite it as y equals k x to the third. Now, if this right now does not make sense to you, I would go back to 3-8 part A where we took notes on the formulas. Okay? So right here, this is our formula. Now, what's the formula for k? What did we say the formula for k was?
Y over x to the n.
Y over x to the n. But in our particular case, it's going to be what? Y over x to the power of 3, or x cubed. The reason why I said to the power of 3 or cubed is because it tells us right here we're dealing with the cube of a number. Alright, so we have our formula for k. So what I'd like us to do is kind of highlight some things here. We have our y value. It says our y value is a 3, so plug in a 3 there. Alright, we have our x value. It says x is equal to 2, so plug in a 2 there. And what we're going to do right now is we are solving for k. Alright, we're solving for k. So our y value is 3. When our x value is 2. But it's not just a 2, it's a 2 to the power of 3.
That will be 8.
Right, so in the denominator, we have an 8. In the numerator, we have a 3. But 3 over 8 is the answer for k. So one of the things that one of the things we were asked to find, it says find the what? Constant of variation for each of these. So what is our constant of variation?
38.
3/8. So right here in your paper, put k equals 3/8. That's one of your answers. Now,
That would be
that's the constant of variation. That's okay. Now it says, and use it to what? Use it to write in equation. So we're going to take this 3/8 right here, and we're going to plug it in right here for our equation. So what would our equation be with the 3/8 plugged in? Y equals 3/8 x cubed, or x to the third power. And there's your equation. So we found k, we found the equation, and then what were we saying? We have to solve. It says what? Find what? What do we have to find?
Find x when y is 3.
Now, do you guys remember that little in your notes? We had like a little chart of how to set things up and solve, and you had to solve them. All right, so I'm going to go over here. If you guys look at your chart, at some point you probably see something that looks like this. Ready? y1 over x1 to the power of n equals y2 over x2 to the power of n. But we know what our n value is this time, right? Our n value is a 3. So what I want you guys to do is put y1 over x1 cubed equals y2 over x2 cubed. And the 1 and the 2 just represent your first coordinate, and the 2 represents your second value. Yes, I'm trying to do this. So this one right here, everybody, when we did that, when we found our k value, what did we get? We ended up getting what, 3 over 8. Now it says right here, it says our y value is a 24, so I'm going to put 24 right there. And what do we need to find? We need to find the x value. But what are we going to do with to be x to the power of 3. So that's how you guys could set it up. Because remember, this 8 is not just, it was 8. It was 2 to the power of 3. That's how we got to that 8. Now automatically, when you guys look at this, what does that kind of prompt you to do? Cross multiply, solve for a proportion. Okay? That's why this formula right here is very, very useful. You can just plug in numbers and you can cross multiply and solve for it. So right here, what are our cross products? One of our cross products is 3 times x cubed, and the other cross product is 8 times a 24. Now I didn't multiply 8 times 24, because what am I going to have to do eventually anyway? Divide both sides by what? 3. So watch what happens. If I divide this side by 3 and I divide that by 3,
You will have other 8.
hold on. These cancel out. I have x cubed.
Equals 8 times
8 times 8. Now, how did you get 8 times 8? Because 3 goes into 24 8 times. And so now you have 8 times 8, which is a... So now that we have that, what's the very, 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 very final step? We have to take the cubic root. We're not going to cube it. We're going to take the cubic root of both sides. Because the cubic root of x cubed is x. And the cubic root of 64
It's 4.
is 4. Because 64 is 4 times 4 times 4. Okay? So let's review what we asked you to solve for. One of the things we asked you to solve for was the k value. And the k value in this particular case ended up being 3/8. The next thing we asked you to do was use the formula. Okay? And using the formula, our equation was y equals 3/8 x cubed. And the last thing we asked you to do was solve for x when y was 24, and our final answer that we got was a 4. So what I'm looking for, everybody, when you're working on these particular problems, is I'm looking for your k value, your equation, and the missing variable that you have to solve for. So I'll be looking for 3 answers when you're doing this. Okay? All right, the last one we're going to show you guys how to work with right now is dealing with varies inversely. All right? So right now it says y varies inversely as x. So could you guys look at your inverse variation formula? What is it? What is y equal to? K over x to the power of n. All right? Now, if it says y varies inversely as x, and it doesn't say inversely as x squared or inversely as x cubed, automatically, what do we know our n value is equal to in this one? If it doesn't say squared or cubed, it just says y varies inversely as x. Just assume that is x to the power of 1. So here's our formula. Y equals k over x. Right? Y equals k over x. What's our formula for k? So x to the ny, but since we know what our n value is, it's just going to be k equals x times y. So if we want to solve for our constant k, which we need to, we have to take our x value and we need to multiply it together to our y value, and that gives us our k value. So what is our y value? 3. What is our x value? 25. Multiply them together, and automatically we get our k value, which is a 75. So, remember we have 3 answers, right? One of our answers is k, so we put k is equal to 75. And k is our constant of variation. Now we have our formula as well, because I said y equals k over x. If you look over here, y is equal to our constant over x, and we found our constant. So what's our equation?
Y equals 75 over 25.
75 over x is our equation. Because it asks us to solve for our equation. So if we solve for k, we have our equation. Now, listen. 75 divided by 25 gets us 3. Okay, so if you plug it in, if x was 25, then y was 3. says we have to do what? Find what? Find x when y is 10. Now we also have a way to solve this, saying x1, y1 equals x2, y2. You guys look at your chart that we did. Right? The third thing that you'll see on your chart is x1, y1 equals x2, y2. Except you'll see x, you'll have an n value, but we already know our n value is a 1, so that's why I didn't write those down. So, right here, we know what x1 times y1 was equal to. That ended up being equal to a what? A 75. That's what our constant was equal to. Here we have to solve for what? Solve for x when y is equal to a 10. This is our y value, which was equal to a 10. We're solving for our x value. So what's the only number that you could plug in there where this number times 10 is a 75?
7.5.
Good job, 7.5. All right. So yes, 7.5 times 10 is 75. So the last part of the problem, you had to solve for x. So x was equal to 7.5. Now, if you didn't know that off the top of your head, what would you divide both sides by? 10. So if you didn't just automatically recognize that a number times 10 is 75, you divide this side by 10 and divide this side by 10, and you still get obviously the same number of 7.5. So remember, k is your constant of variation. Y equals 75 over k was the equation you had to find. And lastly, you had to use your equations to solve for the missing variable. Okay? That's what you guys do the rest of the time. Good luck.